Anyways, I see Mark Alfons, and I'll let you get us started. Mark, welcome to AIU, and thank you for joining us today for the presentation.
Thank you, Rick. Thank you very much. Hello and welcome, everyone. Um, so I hope you enjoyed this session today. Um, I, I I just want to welcome everyone here to this class. My name is Mark Alfons. I am a licensed psychologist and a PhD candidate now. I have a bachelor's degree in clinical pharmacology, and after that, I decided to study psychology, and I went on to receive my master's degree in psychology from Arizona State University. And currently, I am a PhD candidate in psychology as well. Um, Today, we're going to be talking mainly about the current trends in psychology and pharmacology. But since I am practicing psychology, it will involve more information on psychology. And in the end, if anyone has any questions, either on pharmacology or psychology from an academic point of view or a career wise tips, because I have been there. I know that we all get into this dilemma of how to fetch what we want to study with our career goals. And I have been in this spot specifically quite a few years ago. I was just finishing my bachelor's degree and I've become a licensed pharmacist. But at the same time, I felt that I've always been enthusiastic about psychology. I wanted to study psychology from an academic point of view and pursue a career in psychology, which I did um, quite short after I received my bachelor's degree. So my first, just a quick tip in the beginning, it's very important to take some time to think what type of career you want to pursue. For me, I was just finishing my bachelor's degree, but then I became more and more enthusiastic about not just pharmacology, because pharmacology is a wide spectrum. And when you become a licensed pharmacist, you get to work in retail pharmacies or get a different career in pharmaceutical companies. So it's really quite different. So it's really quite different career pathways, and each and for sure they were both different from what I have studied. So there are some differences academically um, from what you get to study. And for me, I decided that I didn't want to do either. Um, that's the main reason why I shifted to psychology. So my only tip in that regard would be I only knew that I love to be a psychologist for the rest of my life, that this is the career to choose for me, is when I found myself enjoying doing it. Sometimes you all of us get tired with overtime, but the moment when you kind of enjoy doing overtime, at least don't mind it, when you find yourself not like okay with working on some weekends, not all weekends, because that's insane. But when you find yourself more ready to compromise, sometimes we are we're never willing to compromise in aspects that we do not like or we do not enjoy. And the moment you find yourself ready to compromise, either on longer working hours or on working on weekends or any other aspect, really, it really differs with each profession. But when you find yourself ready to do that, this would be your career. And I'm not talking about the money, I'm not talking about other reasons why you're doing it. The only reason that you enjoy it and it makes you okay with it, this is when it should be your career.
Thank
And
you, Mark. Thank you, Mark. Yeah, I just wanted to comment that that's what one of the things we look for in phase one of the program at AIU is to try to find, with the academic freedom that we provide, letting our students choose what to study, we have the ability to map out what is our calling, what's our dreams, and to then be able to use the AIU program as a platform to get there, so that if we find our passion in life and we're doing what we love, we'll be happy and it's not going to be really work. And as you mentioned, with the changes recently of the pandemic and with technology, just like we are here today, borders no longer exist. And whether it's psychology, counseling, therapy, you can now participate with anybody in any part of the world and help them if that's your calling. And that's excellent, Mark. Thank you so much for that introduction.
thank you, Rick. And yes, it is true that offering a wide variety or some sort of a flexibility, especially when you're just starting your academic journey, you'd want to explore, you'd want to shift, you'd want to not to stick with
Definitely.
one, because many people feel they are stuck with one program that they chose, not much flexibility. So this is a great option, and particularly in psychology. I'm going to be talking today about three major trends in 2023 coming up. And the first one of these trends, actually, both pharmacology and psychology are interrelated in many aspects, but the most important one is uh, pharmacopsychology, which is how drugs are used in the field of psychology. And because there is always this debate about whether the psychological interventions or the pharmacological interventions are more advantageous when approaching any psychological disorder. And this is something that both therapists struggle with nowadays, as well as the clients, because we all have been exposed to maybe times that caused us some anxiety, which has been very evident during the pandemic. And we maybe you've been diagnosed with any sort of depression throughout your life. Some of them, some of us must have been exposed to some sort of trauma in childhood, and all of these, um, we've always had different approaches to go through, either psychologically and or pharmacologically. And the first one of the current trends is that within this debate of whether pharmacological interventions or psychological interventions should be the go-to, the COVID-19 pandemic has kind of pushed us into experimenting whether psychological interventions are better, because pharmacological interventions actually took quite a hit, because in order to be prescribed an antidepressant or any drug, you'd have to be evaluated by um, a professional, and in order to do so, this would not have been possible online. You'd have to go to a psychiatrist, get evaluated, and then get a prescription, and then go to a pharmacy or a store to have this drug. This process have been hindered by the pandemic, and the shift actually to telemental health took place, and now we cannot prescribe drugs to people because no one could attend in person. So the only alternative solution was to offer
Oh my God.
psychological interventions and really test the boundaries of that, and or how we could push the psychological interventions to have to maximize their effects and efficacy. And we
Okay.
actually found uh, quite impressive results with that, because, and just for everyone here maybe struggling with mental illness, psychological interventions has been found to be equivalently effective and efficacious to to drugs. So um, when in treating a wide variety of disorders really, but mainly depression and anxiety, because how COVID-19 affected us have been dramatic. Like, there is no turning back from this, and there are many estimates that global levels of depression and anxiety levels um, have been rising. Some estimates say 15%, which is quite a huge percentage, even though it doesn't look like it. And now our approach was that, since people cannot be prescribed drugs for logistic reasons during the pandemic, telemental health has become a thing. And it's been growing exponentially since then. Even when the first wave subsided, the second wave subsided, even when people could go out, the lockdown is over, and people did not really go back to their old habits when administering mental health care, but rather they continued to use the telemental health services because they were now more accessible um, and more feasible to use. And the takeaway from this was that two things. First, now we know how psychological interventions alone have been very effective, from using of CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy, to dialectical behavioral therapy, which is DBT, or other sorts of therapy. Now we know that all of these are very, very effective in treating psychological disorders. From major depressive disorder to other types of depression to a wide variety of anxiety disorders. And there, from there, we came to the conclusion that we should focus on on online mental health care more, and telemental health become exponential. And this is not only in psychology, but rather in every field. And this would be like my one advice, that whatever you're studying now, and I understand all the audience here are students, whatever you're studying, you need to have a vision of how to deliver your service online in the near future, because this trend or opportunity is going to continue throughout the next maybe 5, 10 years, and more. So whatever you do, you need to focus on how to convert this, how to turn this into um, maybe an online business, but rather to how to practice it online, how to deliver it online, whether it let it be engineering, programming, any sort of thing. And in my profession, um, I have started um, telemental health services actually couple years before the pandemic, and which I found to be a very promising uh, uh, um, which I found to be a very promising um, aspect. And from there, people actually thought about how to move forward with this online trend. And the second psychology trend I'm going to talk about today is the implementation of artificial intelligence, not just in psychology, but other in every field. But especially in psychology and in academic community, there is a trend going on about how to implement artificial intelligence into the field of psychology. And I've actually been lucky to work recently on a project that is designed to implement AI responses to in a mobile application that has been developed. And my job was to create a map with a predetermined set of responses based on the principles of cognitive behavioral therapy that extends like like a spider's web. Whenever the user chooses something, the AI would give them an option or a list of options to choose from, and it's a way to deliver mental health care ba based on technology per se. And this has been quite revolutionary, because in the past we always thought about um, mental health or psychology as as a therapist sitting there and the client lying on a chair and venting to the psychologist. But now it's not just it's not that it could be done online, it's that it could be done without any human intervention. And this is revolutionary because there is really no way to test the reliability and validity of these new tools, or whether they would be effective or not. But the trend is going to continue, and the implementation of AI is going to increase more and more in the near future. And I think this is also a venue to explore for all students in all fields. That is how to become able to deliver your profession online, and to how to make the best use of technology and of AI, because there are now many ready to use applications. There are now many revolutionary ways to AI. And we maybe some of you have heard of the new GPT, and how it's designed to simulate human responses in many aspects. And there's been a debate on whether of whether we could design our own AI or therapist robot or GPT that could have an answer to any mental health issue uh, that anyone has. And this is quite challenging, because the role of a psychologist, and this is too clear but sometimes get confused. The role of a psychologist is mainly matching what the client says to a diagnostic set of criteria that matches uh, one or more psychological disorders. So maybe you've heard of the DSM-5, that is the diagnostic manual for all psychological disorders. And this is actually the role of a psychologist. He works as a mediator between what you say and what's in these diagnostic criteria. And then a good psychologist could match accurately
when you're
what you
sick.
have to say, or your mental health issues with a psychological disorders. And from that we could move on to designing a therapeutic plan or a treatment intervention. So if this process could be done using AI, or if this process could be done electronically, then maybe the role of a psychologist will no longer be needed. And this is a very kind of hot topic nowadays, because if the role of a psychologist could be eliminated with the use of technology, so how effective a psychologist was really, um, if this is something that technology could be done with ease. So
Yes. Mark, there's a question from Elvis. Elvis,
sure.
please go ahead.
Actually, it was a suggestion of you sharing your screen with us so we can follow up what you say and what you have.
Okay. I don't know. Is Mark, is today a presentation, or are we doing a discussion? I'm not sure if it's a.
No, we're doing more of a discussion sort
Okay.
of things.
Okay.
So yeah, my aim was to make it more
Yes.
convenient for anyone to share what they think of instead of like delivering some concrete points.
So,
So
Okay.
Mark, I did have regarding the AI. It's affecting all areas. In fact, I think this month there is a AI who will be representing as an attorney a client in court. Now, I can't think of a better attorney than a computer who can access all of the history of case files, millions of case files, uh, that a human attorney can only access through memory. So all of the professions have this challenge. Now, as far as psychology, I think if I am getting therapy, but I know, like I'm aware that I'm talking to a machine or a robot, I don't know if that'll make me feel better or worse. Like just, I
with
think, I don't know if you can replace the human, because I think people need that human connection. Maybe if they were chatting online and they think that Mark Alfons right now is a AI construct, which you could be. I mean, theoretically, it could be something that has your picture and it moves your
yeah, you'll never
face.
know.
You never know. But as
You'll
long as I
never know.
think,
Yeah.
yeah, if I think you're human, I think I'm going to feel better if you're listening to me. The moment that I'm, someone who's seeking help and I realize that I'm talking to a machine, I don't know if that'll make me feel better. So I don't know. We may be safe in the area of psychology. Our jobs may be somewhat safe, but I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Well, it's a very good point because the thing is, in psychology, my own opinion is that it's not going to happen very soon, or it's not going to have this such a complete shift, like the one you mentioned with the case that a complete robot is going to replace the attorney. But this is only valid in psychology because there are things that robots cannot convey because they are naturally human-based emotions, such as empathy. By the way, empathy is a very essential cornerstone of a good therapist. It's useless if you could. I explained earlier how the work of a psychologist is basically based on matching what the client says to diagnostic criteria and then give him an accurate diagnosis. But this bridge cannot be possible without human emotions being conveyed, such as empathy, for example, because um, without empathy and without the mediator, who is the psychologist now, being able to fetch all of these inner thoughts and core beliefs and emotions and sometimes behaviors from the client, there would be nothing to match with the diagnostic criteria. And like you said, it's not going to be so much fun or comfortable for someone to vent everything to a robot that the client knows that it's not a human. But to be fair, on the other side of the
Too
argument,
noise, man.
but on the other side of the argument, um, it's argued that what would make the person vent about all their mental health issues to a robot is that their confidence that the robot is not going to make the same mistake um, as a psychologist might potentially do. For example, if you know that by conveying everything you feel and everything you complain of to a robot, you will 100% get an accurate diagnosis and 100% get a treatment that is the best option for you, this might actually encourage you to do so, because there are many instances we where the psychologist kind of mismatches what the client says, or um, um, for example, I am originally Egyptian, and in Egypt, there a common malpractice is that there's a rush or a tendency to use more and more pharmacological treatments. So antidepressants are being prescribed so easily, and since what the client conveys, it depends on self-reported measures. Basically, what the client says, there's a very high chance that the client was prescribed an antidepressant such as an SSRI or any other antidepressant, where in fact they do not need it. And we see that in how um, the clients might suffer severe side effects of these drugs because they did not qualify actually for the disorder upon which they've been prescribed that medication. So there are two ways of seeing this, but the point is, whatever you do, whatever you intend to study, you need to think of two things. One, how to sort of freelance it, how to become a freelancer when you're delivering these services. And the second thing, how to make the best use out of technology. Um, I work part-time on a freelancing website, and I've been working there for 7 years now. And 10 years ago, no one actually knew of these websites. No one actually knew that these services existed, and that people could actually work. I know a lot of people who work as full-time freelancers, and 10 years ago this was not even a thing. People didn't really think about how to deliver their services online, but it's only been highlighted since the pandemic, and this is one of the um, like effects that the pandemic had on us, that there's no turning back from. And it's been very useful, really,
Yes.
because there are
Yeah, Mark,
now.
sorry to interrupt. Yeah, I mean,
Sure.
I think it's brought us maybe 10 years of advance towards online in a short 2 years. I just wanted to let you finish your point, Mark, but also to let you know that there were 3 hands up. So I don't know if you see them or if you want me to call on them, or
Actually, I missed them, but yeah, if
oh,
anyone has any
yeah.
questions at
I'll
this
I'll let
point.
you know. Yeah, I'll let you know when there's a question. So for example, let's go with Emmanuel Oure.
Yes, so I just want to agree with you on the AI, that of course people are now becoming feeling somehow if they know that this machine, but there can be a twist if there becomes a track record that AI delivers better service, and people are now more comfortable because they can see the results. Then you say that will change the whole dynamics. People would not, if you want to go that way, not even money whether it is human or not. Yeah, that's my line of thought.
Yes, and I agree with you, to be honest. And I think our responsibility is always to uh, search for not just for ways to make the machines more perfect, but rather for any methodical errors in the way AI works. For example, during my contribution to a project on a machine kind of therapist. I was, like I said, I was responsible for writing the responses in a wide very detailed, very web map. The thing is, the AI would only answer in a specific way when you tell them to do that. If you and this always contains some errors in method. For example, the client may not be able to express right, and when they do, it's very, very easily for the machine, because the machine only processes the inputs. It only deals with inputs. The only difference is that when I see a client, I do not deal with them as inputs or as just as a paper or two of information or a psychological report. I deal with them as a human being, and what they say, I interact with. And this interaction could result in the client having more insights about what they are actually experiencing, and this could potentially change their initial inputs. But this is a step that is missing from the AI, because the AI only works in asking a set of questions and moves you from one wide topic to a subtopic to a subtopic until it gives you a final conclusion or diagnosis. I'm only applying this. I'm not sure in what field you're in, but I'm only applying it from my profession, that there are, for now at least, there are methodical errors that there are experts who are responsible for trying to overcome these errors. But for now, your job would be to focus on how these errors and to understand how these errors cannot be replacing humans, because for example, what I do, I don't think is replaceable by a machine, because simply because there are an interaction part of things that cannot be ignored, whereas the machine processes things instead of interacting with it in a dynamic way, if you could say that. Yeah, I hope this answers your question.
Yeah. Thank you, Emmanuel, for the question. Dr. Alakimu, you've had your hand up.
I am Dr. Al-Hakim Jallo in Atlantic International University from Western Africa country, Mali. I have some three questions, simple three questions for you, Mr. Mark. You are, I know that you are from Egypt. I want now, if you now someone call it Turkey Falaki, Turkey Falaki, it is a, I think that it is magic person, or it is magic in psychology field. This I want now if Turkey it is doing as you as this is field, it is you as you feel in psychology. It is one first question. Second question. Now you are doing you are candidate, a PhD candidate. I want to know if you are a PhD candidate in AIU or in another university. This second question. Third question, it is a psychology. What is the difference between psychology and magic? But by example, someone in field magic, someone can talk about to another person by distance without any telephone, without any phone call. It is true or false, the magic and the relationship between psychology and magic. I want now this question. Thank you.
Okay, first, thank you for your questions. And Yeah, I'm a PhD candidate at ASU currently, and the second two questions about magic. Okay, so I consider myself um, an empirical scientist, which is I believe in empirical science, and empir empirical science cannot have any supernatural element. By supernatural, I mean unfalsifiable, that cannot be measured. I understand that in some communities, magic is prevalent, is predominant. And in Egypt, not quite so, but there are some communities in Egypt that believes in magic in a more broad sense. But in science, unfalsifiability is an issue. And by that, I mean, what if I tell you that in psychology, all the disorders are caused by a big bird in um, in another planet that you cannot see or hear of, and you're going to tell me what's your proof of that, and I'm going to respond by saying what's your proof that it doesn't exist. And this is the issue of unfalsifiability. You cannot um, deny it because you cannot prove it as well. And this has been very evident when psychology was still rising as a new discipline with Freud, actually, because Freud's the Freudian approach actually suffered from this unfalsifiability issues. For example, um, a client comes to Freud and tells him that he has a particular problem. He says, "I have a problem that goes like this," and narrates the details. Freud responds by saying, "You have this problem because you hate your father and wants to take revenge from him." And the person says, maybe the person has a problem with his career. He cannot focus on his career. And Freud says, "Oh, you're a doctor. But and your father was a doctor, and you hate your father, and you don't want to be a doctor like him. That's why you cannot focus on your work as a doctor." But the person responds, "But I love my father. I don't have a problem with my father." So Freud responds, "You are in denial of hating your father. You hate him, but you deny it." And the person goes on to say, "But I do not hate my father, and I do not deny." And Freud would say, "You are unconsciously doing so, and you are." So the reason for this is it cycles you through many unfalsifiable claims. And this what I hope this makes things clearer. So the person can never refute what Freud would say, because he's going to always respond by another unfalsifiable claim. And this is the same thing with magic or any supernatural element. For example, let's take something evident, such as demonic possessions, for example. In psychology, as a science, there is no such thing. There is only psychological reason. I could give you 100 of disorders, from dissociative identity disorder to some parts and some aspects in dementia, and schizophrenic episodes, and to other disorders that cause these types of hallucinations, to mass hallucinations, to a lot of things. I could give you all of these with concrete diagnostic criteria that matches each and every one of them. And when you get me a client or someone with symptoms, and these symptoms are being claimed to be caused by some sort of a supernatural possession or any supernatural magic or anything related, I cannot falsify your claim, but that does not mean that your claim is right. It only means that it's unfalsifiable. Take it as a Superman. Superman is not false, is unfalsifiable. Can you prove that Superman does not exist? No, but only because no one can prove that he exists. And these are all logical fallacies. The burden of proof lying on the claim. If I claim something, I have the responsibility to prove it. Yeah, so science, to sum it up, science deals with empiricism. Since you're all students, and I could see that there is a very good cross-cultural variation in the audience. When you write a paper as a student, a common term that is used is to use empirical research. It's very commonly used in instructions. What does this mean? It means that you cannot go in and cite in your paper, let's say, something from a journal, or not an academic journal would be okay, but not something from a newspaper or an online blog or something like that. Why? Because it's not empirical, and empirical means experimental. There are two types of research: qualitative research and quantitative research, and any empirical research is experimental. There are other types like a quasi-experimental or other types of research, but in the end, qualitative research deals with data that they could investigate. So I hope it kind of answered the question.
Yeah. Wonderful.
Thank you, Mark. Let's go to Kofi Tuom. Kofi, you have your hand up. How are you?
I'm fine. Please, how are you doing?
Great, great. Thank you.
Please, I want to ask first of all, the application of artificial technology. How is it going to affect employment?
I can't really hear you. It keeps stuttering.
I said, how is artificial technology going to affect employment?
Yes, so Kofi, very good question about how AI will affect employment. And I'll let you, Mark, answer. I just wanted to share one thing. About 20% of labor across the world is currently in logistics, transportation, and those types of services. And with autonomous driving, all those jobs are no longer going to be necessary within the next decade or so. And there's a lot of other things. However, that doesn't mean necessarily that all the jobs are going away. It just means that we're going to have to do something more productive, which is good for our society. So it's very good, actually, that instead of driving, we can have millions and millions of human beings devote their lives to something more productive for the human race. Go ahead, Mark, if you have something to add.
Thank you, Kofi, for your question, and thank you, Rick, for your insightful response. Yeah, I totally agree with what you said, Rick, and I just wanted to add that I started doing freelance work more than 10 years ago. I started as a freelance writer in psychology. This was my title more than 10 years ago when a freelancer was not a freelancer, it was someone doing something online. And it was weird. No one really understood what I was doing. My friends really thought I was doing it for fun, like it's not an actual career. I could see that since there's a cross-cultural variation in the audience, I like to emphasize more and more about the importance of trying to figure out something that you are very good at, and two, to have a good education about it. For example, since AIU offers a wide variety of programs, my freelance career kind of shifted completely before and after I got a university degree. I was doing it as a student before I get my degree, but after I got my degree, I was now able to provide the same services, but with more academic background and with established credentials, if we could say that. So you need to find something that you're really good at, something that you could work on and deliver online. And two, you need to have a credential for that. You need to have credentials in the sense that you need to study. And most of now, since online learning is becoming more and more of a thing, it's becoming more credible to identify with and acknowledge. 20 years ago, no one, and I'm not like not no one, but rather in the US, it was kind of perceived differently to have an online master's degree or an online PhD. You would be perceived as less than someone who studied on campus. I did both. I've been lucky enough to do both. I've studied both on campus and off campus, and the differences are minimal. But this was not how people perceived it 20 years ago. Now it's perceived differently. Online degrees are now perceived with respect, with acknowledgement of the fact that it's the same degree. And this is
Thank
very
you.
important when a student is making such a decision.
Thank you, Mark. Excellent answer. And we have, I don't want to scare you, we have 5 hands up, and I want to give everybody a chance.
worries. Sure.
Daniel Sowa, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much for the opportunity. Thank you, Mark, for your presentations.
Thank you.
Yes, there's this thing that has been bothering me, which this is the best forum I can ask. We all know that, or as we may all know, pharmacology is a branch of medicine, biology, or pharmaceutical sciences concerned with drugs and medical actions. It tells us what the drug does to the body and what the body does to the drug as well. And if we can look at psychology, it's a scientific study of the mind and behavior, right? It's also concerned with consciousness and unconsciousness. My question is, what are the differences between these two modules or these two terminologies, and what actually are the similarities we can talk about in talking to people that misuse medicines or have psychological impact when they take a particular medicament? Those are my 2 questions. Thank you very much. Over.
Great question. I kind of missed the last sentence, but it's a great question, and let me answer based on a quick example. Let's say a child has been exposed to trauma, unfortunately, and he or she might have developed post-traumatic stress symptoms or post-traumatic stress disorder later on. From a medical standpoint or a neurological standpoint or like what you refer to, maybe scientific standpoint, the first thing we do is that we do something called an fMRI, which is a magnetic resonance imaging. That's simply a brain scan to see what regions of the brain have been affected by this, by exposure to trauma, links to particular brain regions affected, which is shown in the brain scans. Developing more persistent PTSD or post-traumatic stress disorder has different or more particular brain regions in the brain scan, and each particular difference has it's called a neurological mark in the brain scan. So this is one aspect. But in psychology, we'd see, we monitor it differently. We approach it differently. We see the changes in behavior, and the two are connected, because the brain scans would show altered brain regions, and these altered brain regions would contribute to changes in behavior. But it's just different approaches, but it's the same outcome. The outcome is that the person is deeply, deeply affected by the trauma, and there are many alterations in how they think and how they feel and how they behave, the three things. And to test the differences, and to treat the differences in thinking, for example, an example of alteration core belief would be the belief in a safe world. The person would no longer believe that the world is a safe place, and this core belief would change their emotions. There would be constantly having negative emotions or negative affect as a result of this core belief, and this will eventually lead to very detrimental or substantial changes in behavior. So when we approach this from the behavioral part of things, or emotional part of things, or cognitive part of things, this is psychology. But when we approach it from neurological part of things, or sometimes the neurological aspect, we identify the altered brain regions, and then a drug is prescribed accordingly to kind of fix these altered brain regions. This is the neurological slash biomedical aspect. So the two are complementary, but each of them covers a different area. That's all.
Thank you, Mark. Elvis, you've had your hand up for a long time. Please share with us.
Mark? Hello, you can hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah. Elvis,
okay.
Please go ahead.
Okay, I think I'll move you away from your topic a little bit.
No worries.
Psychology is something we use on a daily basis. So I'm trying to look at it from the management point. So in the management field, you address issues and you work hand to hand with people. So what can be the advices you can tell us, or the piece of advice you can just tell us here to have in mind when dealing with people? And my question concern is, you've been in psychology, so what are your life ideology? So those are my two concerns.
Great questions, Elvis. Thank you very much. Very insightful questions. And yeah, I've been actually thinking about. I was just thinking about sharing the same thing minutes ago. So answering the first part of your question, there's a subfield in psychology called the IO psychology, industrial organizational psychology. This is the subfield in psychology that is concerned with management. For example, I contributed to a paper recently that was in IO psychology. Even it's not really my area of expertise, but it was on whether employees should be monitored around the clock by the employers. Like, for example, if you're a manager, should you put a camera in the room to 24/7 see what your employees are doing, and whether that leads to more or less productivity, or whether you monitor their computer screens or whatever. And what I can tell you is that it's very, very crucial. Everyone would have some encounters or some challenges in their workplace. And my advice is that you need to learn how to search for the answers. For example, the IO psychology is like a very, very wide and detailed subfield. And there would be, I mentioned one example of employers monitoring employees, but there are endless examples and endless case scenarios in which IO psychology tries to answer adequately. And my advice would be to learn how to be a good researcher, to learn how to uh, research and answer to a particular challenge or a particular question that you might have. You'd be surprised by the amount of insights that you could find when researching for an answer to any question. But in this regard, I have two pieces of advice. One, always search empirical resources. Always look for academic papers, academic journals. Learn how to read them. Learn how to navigate them. It's not difficult. Just needs practice. It needs you to expose yourself to many papers instead of just rushing to read a blog post online or a clip from a newspaper online or something like that. Like take the extra mile, do the hard work, and my other piece of advice would be always because I see people from many cultures here. English might not be your first language. Uh, it's very crucial to be uh, uh, um, as good in English as it lets you to search for what you need, because the marketplace nowadays, the competition in all professions is too much. Like you cannot, and I say this with confidence, you cannot get a good job or or have a promising uh, um, career without being fluent in English, regardless of what your first language was. Being fluent in English and being a good researcher, knowing how to find answers. So yeah, these are simply my two pieces of advice in that regard. The other part of your question about the motto or the one thing I have my motto in life. I actually borrowed it from um, a history professor called Dale Martin in Yale. He It's an old Latin verse that says "De omnibus dubitandum," um, and it basically means that to doubt everything. This is my motto in life. Always approach a thing with a grain of salt. This will always make you develop more and more. It will always make you up to date more and more. It will always make you uh, question what you believe in and what you know, and this will push you into becoming a better person, both from uh, both from a career standpoint and from a personal growth journey. Thank you very much for your question. I just noticed another question about can a psychologist prescribe drugs? I'm sorry, I missed the person who asked it. Um, no.
It was Damaris Wangari.
Damaris, thank you very much for your question. Sorry to miss your name. So a psychologist cannot prescribe drugs. This is the general rule, with exceptions to that. One exception is simply for any mental health professional to be able to prescribe drugs, they have to be a psychiatrist. That is, the psychiatrist is actually a physician, um, graduated from med school and specializing in psychiatry. And the difference between psychiatry and psychology is really a long topic, but simply um, um, psychiatric disorders are disorders like psychosis, schizophrenia, um, and these classes of disorders. But psychological disorders are depression and anxiety, and another class of disorders. But simply, a psychologist is qualified to deal with any disorders that could be treated only with psychological interventions. But a psychiatrist is mainly um, uh, uh, specialized in um, not psychological disorders, but rather psychiatric diseases like psychosis, schizophrenia, like delirium, things that cannot be treated with psychological interventions only. Thank you for your question again.
Thank you, Mark. And let me go to Danielle, and then after Danielle, Charles. And I think we've reached the end of the session, so we can let those two go, and then we can conclude.
Good afternoon, everyone here present, and thank you for giving me the floor. I strongly appreciate the presentation since it's talking of psychology. My worry is like we all know that psychology is the mindset, is the study of the brain. But I'd like to ask two questions. Please, psychology helps us to understand our daily life, the behavior of human being. Equally, it masters the intention and the character of a person. But I'd like to know what is the correlation between psychology and hypocrisy, because I know that psychology shows openly the action and the state of the brain of someone. But at times, someone could smile whereas very angry in his heart. What's the correlation between psychology and hypocrisy? The second question that I'd like to ask is to know the importance of psychology in our life and in the organization. Thank you very much.
I kind of missed the second question. I'm sorry.
The second question is to know the importance that we have to manage and master psychology in our life and in the organization. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your questions. So psychology is a science, is empirical science. Sometimes it's conflated with other types of maybe life coaching, training things, or like you said, whatever is not empirical is not psychology as a science. So psychology as a science is only concerned with empirical evidence, that is data or conclusions based on actual experiments that is been done by scientists. So this is quite different from the common perception of psychology as only the understanding of the brain, but there is a difference between guessing about how someone goes through something, how someone feels something, how someone interacts with something, and gives them a response based on that. Maybe this is life coach. Some people call it pop psychology as for popular, but it's not empirical, it's not scientific. Psychology as a science, or psychology as I studied, is based on empirical research, that is scientific papers, scientific journals, in the field of disorders. When someone is having mental health issues, we refer back to the DSM-5, which is the diagnostic manual that we use for any psychological disorders. All of these things I mentioned, like the DSM-5, is available online. You could take a look at it, see how detailed it is, how it's not easy to diagnose anyone with anything. There is where I come from, there is a tendency to claim that anyone who's sad is depressed. So, oh, you're feeling down. Why you're so depressed? Or you seem quite unhappy. You must be depressed. This is not true, because in order for someone to be diagnosed with depression, with clinical depression, it has to match the diagnostic criteria of even the mild depressive disorder or a major depressive disorder. These are all coded. These are all have specific criteria in the DSM. And for example, the simplest of these criteria are that the person must have must feel consistent feelings of sadness for consequent 15 days. So for 2 weeks, you have to be completely sad. The only dominant emotion that you feel is pure sadness with no apparent reason. This is one thing. So people kind of rush to label or to mislabel actually psychological disorders to things that are not. But anyways, yeah, thank you very much for your question.
Thank you, Mark. And Charles, please go ahead.
Thank you, Mark, for your presentation. I want to make an observation and possibly a question. When we talk about deploying AI in the field of psychology, especially in areas of counseling or therapy, we know that machines are great tools and have been of great help to human beings in all areas of life. But machines can only give out what is fed into them or what is programmed into them. So when you deploy AI in the field of counseling, how do you take care of certain situational circumstances whereby someone, for instance, during a counseling session breaks into like uncontrollable weeping or tears? So how does a machine, take care of such kinds of situations rather than a human to human person with that empathy and compassion? So that is my question.
Great question, Charles. Thank you very much. Yeah, it's a very insightful question, specifically because this is a very important debate in the academia right now in that regard. And to put it simply, AI is very, very, very complex. It deals with endless amounts of possibilities. The algorithm itself is quite designed in a way that, for example, as a human, when someone says something, you could think of possibilities to how to interpret what this person just told you. So, for example, someone comes in, says something, and then starts crying. So your brain might have 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 10 ways to explain his crying on the spot. I'm talking like I'm a psychologist. I'm on the spot. Maybe it's this, maybe that, maybe that. So 5 ways, 10 ways, and this is one of the areas where AI excels in. But the AI is programmed to thousands of possibilities. Let's say crying with prior laughing, crying with prior crying, crying with prior something, crying with endless possibilities to analyze the same thing. Why is AI designed this way? Because there are people like me who spent hours on putting these data, putting these inputs into the AI in a way that exceeds our capacity to deal with things like that off the top of our heads, like on the spot. So instead of me thinking of 5, 10 possibilities, the AI has thousands, because people spent a lot of hours putting all the possibilities that they could think of, and the possibilities are hierarchical. For example, crying followed by something, preceded by something, preceded by another thing. So it's very complicated in a way. Sometimes the human would lose track. Maybe the person is crying now, but you lose track of what he said 5 minutes ago. But in the AI, it's all recorded. There is no chance to miss anything. This is why AI is being argued for as being capable to make the best out of situations that entails or involves many many like complex dynamics, you know, because it kind of exceeds our human capacity to do it on the spot. I hope this answers your question. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark and Charles. Great question. Thank you for that. And I want to thank everyone who appeared today. I posted in the chat the upcoming presentations that we have. We have, just like today, very interesting sessions coming up in sustainable agriculture, database and web development, using WordPress on a website where you'll learn practically how to actually use WordPress yourself, nanotechnology and material science, and many other topics. And Mark, I hope we can invite you back in the future, and you can give us some.
Could be my...
Thank you very much. Yeah, we can do kind of sessions on practical applications of specific techniques that maybe our students could deploy on their own lives, you know, or to get a better result individually, to get a better result with family, to get a better result with coworkers. I think those types of tools could be a long sequence of sessions to help all of our students lead better lives in all the different aspects using psychological techniques.
Sure, yeah, and I just want to say one final thing. We tried to cover a lot of things today, so everything I mentioned could be a seed for someone to search and know much more about than what I said today. So this is a really good chance for anyone who's interested in psychology to take anything that because we tackled a lot of things. I don't think we covered anything in quite a detailed way, so it would be a chance, if you're interested in any thing that we've mentioned throughout, is to take that chance, the opportunity of hearing about it, knowing about it today. Anything from any psychological concepts, starting freelance work, getting online degrees, anything. It's a very good chance for you to go search for it, know more about it. So yeah, just wanted to take the chance to say that. Thank you very much, Sheikh.
There you have it, Mark Alfons. It's been an amazing experience, and we hope to have you back. Students, thank you so much. I wanted to present to you guys a Chat GPT live on the session today, but it was down. It says Chat GPT is at capacity right now. Let me check it one more time. If it's up, I want to just kind of do like a little demo so everybody can actually see what it looks like. Let me see if it's back. Yes, it's available. Okay. So Mark, you can stay if you wish. If not,
No
whoever wants to stay, I'd be happy to just show you guys how it works, because it's really quite amazing. So let me log in and I will share my screen with you. Oh,
sure.
Come on.
And thank you. I just want to thank everyone who's attended, who took the time to attend the session. Thank you all very much for listening. I hope you'd have something to get out of it.
Thank you so much, for sure. So, okay, I'm logging in. So far, so good. Let me present my screen. Okay. Can you see Chat GPT on my screen? Okay. So let's give it a try. So down here, let's do this. Okay, useful psychological tips to live a better life. Include citations. Okay, so I've just instructed the AI to give me an answer, and I asked it to please give me that with citation. So let's see what it does. It's taking a little bit of a while to think. Okay. So number one, practice mindfulness. Can everybody see that? Can you read? Is it clear? Okay.
Yes.
So there, they just gave us a citation. Number two, get enough sleep. So number one, practice mindfulness. That improves mental well-being, reduces stress, anxiety. Being mindful, we can start just by breathing. If everybody can take a moment to just take a deep breath, breathe. We are completely abundant when it comes to air. There's no lack of air. Have you ever complained that there's not enough air to breathe?
No.
Okay, so there we have something to be thankful for. And I think thankfulness is one of the most important behaviors that we can do to improve our immediate state of mind, to find something to be thankful about, anything, if we're going through a tough time. So in a couple of seconds, look what ChatGPT suggested. Number three, exercise. Does anybody want me to type in something else? Does anybody want to get an answer from an AI?
How to run business well.
Okay, all right, good one. Okay. How to, oops. Oh, I got to type it down here. How to run. Any specifics? What type of business?
Let's say
pharmaceutical
industrial
business.
service
Which one?
business.
Which
Service
service?
business.
What type of service?
You're making a product.
Oh, okay. Consumer product. All right, let's see. Number one, conduct market research to identify consumer needs and trends. Number two, develop a strong brand identity to stand out. Create a business plan with goals, strategies, and financial projections. Number four, source high quality materials and suppliers. Number five, have efficient logistics and distribution. Six, implement an effective marketing strategy using various channels. So, I mean, this technology is amazing. I have personally been using it for a few weeks, and it does make my life a lot easier. Anytime I need to do, some type of, letter or a website or an email, it helps me to gather some alternate ways. I've actually put into ChatGPT a text I was writing, and I said, okay, ChatGPT, can you improve the following text? So I said, can you improve the following text? And I put in my paragraph, and it gave me a much better written paragraph than mine. And then I also told it, okay, rewrite this paragraph, but include the following points. And I said, okay, include A, B, C, D points, and it integrated them into a new paragraph. So there you have it. I hope that shows you the power of AI and how we can all use it right now. It's not in the future. It's available to us right now, immediately. So. Caroline?
Yes.
Caroline Omutuya, you have your hand up. I don't know if it was from before or for now. Okay. Well, thank you, everyone. I hope this ChatGPT is something that you integrate into your daily work and become more productive, have more free time. So hopefully you can use AI to get back some time in our lives for things that we love. Any other questions? I don't know, Mark, if you.
Hi, Rick. Yeah, I'm still here.
Oh, okay. Oh, sorry. Yeah. No, I just saw someone's hand up. Kofi. I thought it was.
Yes, please. Based on what you were talking, I wanted to find out how you can overcome fear. If you type how to overcome fear.
How do you open an account?
No, overcome fear. Fear. How to overcome fear. Maybe artificial intelligence and how to overcome fear.
I'm sorry. I didn't hear that. What?
Yeah.
What are you?
How to overcome fear. Fear.
Oh,
you. Fear. Afraid.
How can? Let me put the
Yes.
link. Let me put the link in the chat.
Yes.
Rick, the thing is, hi, Rick.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not sure if you guys can hear me. I just want to mention one thing real quick. ChatGPT is not available in every country so far.
Oh.
There are some countries, especially in Africa, that ChatGPT does not work.
Okay, so if you guys want to use ChatGPT and it's not available, I suggest that you get an IP mask.
Yeah,
or
a VPN, and
a VPN.
not all. Yeah, but not all VPNs work as well. So yeah, it in each country there are some ways to get around it, but you'll be able to do so with a competent VPN that will give you a true server in Europe or the US to be able to log in to see even the website. Okay.
Thank you so much, Mark. I appreciate everyone. Thank you, Kofi, for pointing that out. Thank you, everyone. See you again tomorrow.
All right. All right.
Ciao, ciao. Bye. Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, Daniele. Bye, Kofi.
Bye,
Brenna.
Rick. That's good. Thank you, Mark.
Bye.
That's lovely.
Hi, Esther.
Bye.
Thank you.
Herbert, take care.
Yeah, bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Onyait,
Bye.
thank you.